They say the eyes are the window to the soul, but in intimacy, they're more like the gateway to desire. Think about it, a single glance can spark attraction, deepen connection, or even reveal what words can't. Eye contact is one of the most powerful primal forms of communication our species has. It's how we silently say, I see you, and sometimes I want you. But what really happens in our brains and bodies when two pairs of eyes lock in that magnetic way? That's where the psychology of desire gets fascinating and surprisingly a little vulnerable too. When two people share prolonged eye contact, their hearts start to synchronize. Their bodies release oxytocin, the same hormone that bonds mothers and babies. It's not just emotional, it's biological chemistry aligning two nervous systems in real time. But here's the paradox: the longer the gaze, the more intimate it feels, and the more exposed we become. That's why a glance can ignite desire, but a stare can unsettle. Our brains are wired to create connection, yet fear being fully seen. They say the eyes never lie. But the truth is, when it comes to desire, the eyes don't just tell the truth, they create it. A look can turn a stranger into a fantasy, a moment into electricity. There's something ancient and wordless about the way we meet someone's gaze and feel that rush of chemistry. You can feel it in your chest, that little spark that says, something's happening here. And that's not just poetry, it's biology. When two people lock eyes, the brain responds in milliseconds. Dopamine, the same chemical that fuels pleasure and reward, surges. Heart rates sink, pupils dilate. There's a fascinating study that found when we're aroused, our pupils expand by up to 45%. And subconsciously, we find larger pupils more attractive. It's as if our bodies are whispering to each other before we ever say a word. Eye contact, in that way, is the oldest form of foreplay, but the psychology of the gaze goes deeper than attraction. Eye contact builds intimacy because it triggers a sense of mutual vulnerability. When you look into someone's eyes, you're not just seeing them, you're allowing yourself to be seen. And that's a powerful act. Most people don't realize how hard it actually is to maintain that kind of gaze. Try it. Look into someone's eyes for more than 10 seconds without speaking. You'll feel something shifting, your pulse quickens, your mind races, maybe you even feel a little exposed. That's because eye contact activates the amygdala, the brain's emotion center, the same region that processes fear, pleasure, and desire. It's the emotional equivalent of standing naked, not with your body, but with your soul. In relationships, those moments of shared gaze are like emotional glue. Research from the University of California found that couples who maintain eye contact more frequently report stronger emotional connection and greater satisfaction in their sex lives. Eye contact creates a neurochemical feedback loop. Oxytocin is released, stress hormones drop, and empathy increases. It's the same bonding hormone that floods new parents when they first look at their baby. It's nature's way of saying, you belong here. You're safe, yet there's something beautifully contradictory about it. Eye contact can feel both deeply connecting and wildly erotic. Think of those moments when someone catches your gaze from across the room and holds it just a little too long. There's a pulse in that silence, a spark of tension. You're not touching, not speaking, but something intimate is already unfolding. Your brain is reading thousands of tiny visual cues, the flicker of emotion, the dilation of pupils, the slight upturn of a lip, and translating them into a cocktail of meaning, interest, desire, curiosity. This is why in so many cultures the eyes are tied to seduction. The ancient Egyptians painted their eyelids not just for beauty, but as symbols of power and sexuality. In Japanese art, lovers' eyes often meet in secret, fleeting glances, the kind that say everything they can't express aloud. Even in modern dating, so much of attraction begins with the eyes. Swipe culture may have moved romance to screens, but the first thing we still notice in a photo is the gaze. We're evolutionarily wired to look for signs of connection there: trust, warmth, attention. And yet, not all eye contact feels the same. There's a fine line between what feels intimate and what feels invasive. Our brains are incredibly sensitive to that line. Studies show that mutual gaze lasting between 2 and 5 seconds tends to create comfort and attraction. Go beyond that, say a fixed stare lasting longer, and it can trigger discomfort or even threat responses. It's the body saying, this is too much, because eye contact is inherently vulnerable, and too much vulnerability too soon can feel unsafe. Desire, after all, is built on a delicate balance between closeness and mystery. Interestingly, eye contact plays a unique role during sex itself. Many people underestimate how visual the act of intimacy really is. When you're physically close, the gaze can amplify sensation. Your brain reads facial expressions of pleasure and mirrors them through a process called neural mirroring. Essentially, when you see someone experience pleasure, your brain activates similar areas as if you were feeling it. That's why lovers who look at each other during intimacy often describe it as more passionate, more connected. It's not just emotional, it's neurobiological synchronization. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. The same mechanism that deepens connection can also make us feel exposed. Some people find eye contact during sex too intense, even overwhelming. It can feel like being seen too deeply, as if every guarded part of you is suddenly visible. And in a way, that's exactly what's happening. Sexual arousal and emotional vulnerability share the same neural pathways. The gaze bridges those two experiences, turning sex from a physical act into an emotional revelation. Now, let's talk about how gender, culture, and context shape all of this. In studies, men and women often interpret eye contact differently. Men are more likely to associate prolonged gaze with interest or invitation. Women, on the other hand, tend to read it through layers of context, body language, expression, emotional cues. That difference isn't purely cultural, it's partly evolutionary. Women's brains evolved to be more attuned to subtle nonverbal cues for safety and emotional reliability. So the same glance that feels flirtatious to one person might feel uncertain to another. Culturally, too, the rules vary wildly. In some societies, like parts of the Middle East or East Asia, direct eye contact between men and women is seen as intimate or even taboo. In the West, it's often encouraged as a sign of confidence and interest. But across all these contexts, one thing remains constant: when attraction happens, the eyes find each other. They linger. They tell stories that words could never hold. Let me share a fascinating experiment from the late 1980s by psychologist Arthur Aron. Pairs of strangers into a lab and asked them to maintain eye contact for 4 uninterrupted minutes. No talking, no movement. Just looking. Many of those participants reported feeling an unexpected sense of closeness afterward. Some even described it as falling in love. And here's the kicker: two of those participants actually did fall in love and later got married. 4 minutes of mutual gaze changed their emotional chemistry. That's how powerful eye contact is. It can literally trick your brain into believing intimacy already exists. This might also explain why so many people talk about love at first sight. Scientifically speaking, it's not love, it's the brain's reward system firing off dopamine and oxytocin, creating a rush that feels like love. The eyes act as the trigger. It's why a fleeting glance in a crowded room can leave you thinking about a person for days. The brain connects that moment of mutual recognition with reward, curiosity, and fantasy. Desire, in its earliest form, is born in the eyes long before it reaches the body. But there's another layer we rarely talk about: the psychological dance of looking and being looked at. Human beings are self conscious creatures. We're constantly aware of being seen, and that awareness shapes how we present ourselves. The gaze of another can make us feel alive, desired, validated. It can also make us feel judged or small. When someone looks at us with genuine desire, our body reacts. Testosterone levels can spike. Blood flow increases. We literally feel warmer. That's why eye contact from someone we're attracted to feels like a physical touch. The brain processes it through the same neural regions involved in sensation. At the same time, being seen too clearly can trigger old insecurities. Eye contact can unearth the parts of us we try to hide, the doubts, the fears, the masks we wear. That's why it's often easier to be physically naked than emotionally naked. You can take off your clothes, but to meet someone's gaze and hold it, that's stripping the self bare. Desire isn't just about wanting, it's about being willing to be seen wanting. There's also something beautifully paradoxical about how we use our eyes to manage intimacy. We look to connect, but we also look away to protect ourselves. That quick break in gaze gives us space to breathe, to process, to regain control. It's like the emotional equivalent of pacing a rhythm. Too much constant eye contact can feel suffocating, too little can feel disconnected. The art of intimacy lies in that rhythm: meeting, holding, retreating, returning. It's a silent choreography that says, I see you, but I also see me. Even in long-term relationships, the power of the gaze doesn't fade, it just changes. Early in romance, it's electric and charged with novelty. As years pass, it becomes a language of comfort, familiarity, reassurance. A couple who've been together for decades can share a look across a crowded room and communicate everything: humor, irritation, affection, without saying a word. That's emotional literacy built through thousands of shared glances. But sometimes relationships lose that connection, not because desire disappears, but because we stop looking. Modern life pulls our eyes in every direction: phones, screens, tasks, and the gaze we once reserved for our partner gets scattered. Psychologists call this visual disengagement, and it's a subtle predictor of emotional distance. Reintroducing eye contact, especially during sex or deep conversation, can reignite the sense of presence. It reminds the brain, this person matters, stay here. Interestingly, even brief eye contact with strangers can lift mood. In one experiment, participants who exchanged eye contact with another person on a train ride reported higher levels of happiness compared to those who avoided it. Connection, it turns out, doesn't always require words. Sometimes it's enough just to be acknowledged, to be seen. Our brains crave that recognition. It reassures us of our humanity. But here's the most fascinating twist: We don't just use our eyes to connect, we also use them to test connection. In dating, that moment when one person looks away first can subtly indicate who feels more vulnerable or less certain. It's not a rule, of course, but it reflects a tiny power exchange. The eyes, after all, are where dominance, submission, curiosity, and comfort silently negotiate their terms. This dance happens in milliseconds below consciousness, yet it shapes how attraction unfolds. The power of the gaze even extends into fantasy, pornography, romance films, and erotic media often rely on visual storytelling centered on eye contact. That look between two characters right before the kiss, that's the moment audiences feel most drawn in. It's not the physical act that hooks us, it's the psychological anticipation, the vulnerability of being seen wanting someone and being wanted back. The eyes make that mutual recognition real. So when we talk about the psychology of eye contact, we're really talking about the essence of intimacy itself. The desire to be seen, accepted, desired. Every culture, every era, every love story begins with that moment of recognition. Our eyes are the bridge between thought and touch, between curiosity and connection. And maybe that's why it's so haunting when eye contact disappears. In relationships that are struggling, partners often avoid each other's gaze. They talk, but they don't see. Their eyes drift to phones, to the floor, to anywhere but the person in front of them. The connection weakens not because love has vanished, but because visibility has. To rebuild intimacy, you have to look again, to meet your partner where words have failed. So the next time someone catches your eye and you feel that jolt, that quick, quiet spark, remember what's happening beneath the surface. Your brain is lighting up, your chemistry is aligning, your heart is sensing. It's not just a glance, it's a conversation written in biology, a reminder that attraction isn't something we choose. It's something that sees us first. Because in the end, the eyes don't just reflect desire, they create it. They pull us toward the people who make us feel most alive, most seen, most human. And maybe that's the real secret behind intimate eye contact. It's not about looking at someone, it's about being seen and realizing in that brief electric moment that you were never invisible at all. They say the eyes can speak before the mouth ever moves. What if those glances we trade, those split second moments of connection, are not just silent conversations, but the birthplace of desire itself? Think about it, a look that lingers a little too long, a spark that feels electric, the strange way your body reacts before you've even said hello. It's one of the oldest and most universal human experiences, yet one of the least understood. What's really happening when our eyes meet someone else's and we feel that unmistakable pull? Let's start with something you've probably felt but maybe never named. You're in a crowded place, maybe a cafe, maybe an elevator, and suddenly your eyes lock with someone across the room. It lasts only a second or two, but in that time, your heart rate rises, your stomach flips, your brain lights up like a switchboard. That reaction isn't random, it's your body's ancient communication system kicking in. When two people make eye contact, their brains exchange subtle neurological signals, dopamine, oxytocin, and adrenaline, all firing together to create what psychologists call attentional synchrony. Essentially, for a moment, two nervous systems are dancing in rhythm. Here's the fascinating part. Your pupils actually reveal your internal state even when you're trying to hide it. When you see someone you're attracted to, your pupils dilate. It's an unconscious signal that your body is interested, and believe it or not, others can pick up on it. Studies show that we instinctively find people with dilated pupils more attractive. It's as if our bodies have built in lie detectors that skip over social masks and go straight to chemistry. You can't fake pupil dilation, it's pure biology. In one famous experiment, researchers showed participants two identical photos of the same woman. The only difference was her pupil size. Overwhelmingly, people rated the photo with the larger pupils as more attractive and more emotionally warm. Their brains were responding not to beauty, but to biology. The gaze is nature's way of saying, pay attention, this person might matter, but the power of eye contact doesn't stop at attraction. It's also one of the most efficient ways humans create intimacy. When two people gaze into each other's eyes, their bodies release oxytocin, the same hormone released during orgasm, childbirth, and even when petting a beloved dog. Oxytocin is often called the bonding chemical. It reduces anxiety, increases trust, and literally tells your brain, you're safe here. That's why even newborns search for their parents' eyes moments after birth. It's the first emotional tether we ever form. Fast forward to adulthood, and the pattern hasn't changed much. Couples who maintain more frequent eye contact report higher relationship satisfaction, greater empathy, and stronger sexual connection. Eye contact acts like a neural handshake, a reminder that we're in this together. In fact, brain imaging studies show that when two people gaze at each other, their brain waves synchronize what neuroscientists call interpersonal resonance. It's the same kind of neural harmony seen in people playing music together or sharing a deep laugh. Yet, as deeply as we crave eye contact, it also terrifies us. Prolonged gaze can feel intoxicating, but also exposing. There's a reason many people glance away when they're attracted to someone. It's a self protective reflex. Eye contact bypasses small talk and social scripts, it cuts straight to vulnerability. You can hide behind words, but you can't hide when someone is really looking at you. That's what makes it so erotic and so unsettling at the same time. The human brain has evolved a delicate threshold for comfort. On average, maintaining mutual eye contact for about 3 seconds feels pleasant and connecting. Push it beyond 10 seconds, and most people start to feel uneasy. Past 30, the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system, begins to activate. Too much gaze too soon reads as intrusion, just enough creates allure. Desire, it seems, thrives on the tension between exposure and restraint. You can see this dynamic play out in flirting. The back and forth glances, the quick look away, the return, it's a nonverbal conversation of, I'm interested and I'm safe. That rhythm is what builds anticipation. Neuropsychologists have found that intermittent eye contact stimulates dopamine release more effectively than constant staring. It's the same principle that makes anticipation sweeter than satisfaction. The brain loves the chase. During sexual encounters, the eyes play an even more powerful role. When lovers maintain eye contact during sex, it activates the same reward circuits that light up with deep emotional connection. Their heart rates synchronize, breathing patterns align, and the brain's mirror neuron system fires in sync, essentially allowing each partner to feel what the other feels. That's why couples often describe looking into each other's eyes during intimacy as losing themselves in the moment. It's not poetic exaggeration, it's neurological fact. Yet not everyone finds that kind of intensity easy. For some, eye contact during sex feels almost too intimate, like their partner can see straight through them. And in a sense, they can. Sexual arousal and emotional exposure share overlapping neural pathways. When you hold someone's gaze in a moment of raw vulnerability, you're not just sharing your body, you're sharing your inner world. That's why even casual encounters can sometimes feel unexpectedly deep when the eyes get involved. The link between eyes and emotion runs so deep that even artificial eye contact can trigger human responses. In one experiment, participants interacted with a robot that simulated realistic gaze behavior. When the robot at them, participants showed the same physiological signs of connection, elevated heart rate, oxytocin release, as they would with another person. That's how wired we are for the power of being seen. Our brains can't help but respond. Culturally, of course, eye contact carries layers of meaning. In some places, direct gaze is a sign of confidence and sincerity. In others, it's reserved for intimacy or considered too bold. But across societies, the eyes remain the most potent channel for unspoken emotion. Even when faces are partially hidden through veils, masks, or distance, the eyes continue to do the talking. They reveal what language often conceals. Now, think about how much of modern intimacy unfolds through screens. Text messages, dating apps, video calls, our connections have become increasingly digital. We've learned to flirt with emojis instead of glances. Yet, despite all this technological evolution, our brains still crave visual feedback. That's why video chats often feel more satisfying than voice calls. You can see micro expressions, pupil changes, that spark of recognition. Even online, the illusion of eye contact can release oxytocin and increase attraction. But it also means we've become starved for genuine gaze. In face to face interactions, people are now making less eye contact than ever before. Psychologists have linked this decline to rising loneliness and emotional disconnection. When we avoid looking at each other, we lose a key source of empathy. The eyes don't just create desire, they create understanding. When you see someone's eyes soften, when you watch their pupils widen as they talk about something they love, your brain mirrors that emotion. You feel with them, not just for them. That's the foundation of emotional intelligence. There's a fascinating paradox in all of this. We're simultaneously terrified of and addicted to being seen. Eye contact forces authenticity. It collapses the distance between who we are and who we pretend to be. And in a world that rewards curated selves and filtered images, that kind of raw visibility can feel both erotic and revolutionary. To look at someone and allow them to look back is to surrender control, even for a moment. It's to say, here I am, unfiltered. This is also why so many romantic memories revolve around eyes. People rarely say they fell in love with someone's voice first or their posture. It's almost always the eyes. They remember how someone looked at them that first night, how time seemed to slow, how everything else faded out. That's the imprint of emotional arousal encoded in memory. When we recall attraction, our brain reactivates the same neural patterns as the moment it happened. In other words, the eyes don't just witness desire, they record it. And sometimes they can even deceive us. Love at first sight, for instance, isn't truly love, it's rapid appraisal. Within a tenth of a second, your brain evaluates another person's symmetry, emotional expression, and attentiveness. The rush you feel is dopamine flooding the system, tagging that person as potentially rewarding. But because it's accompanied by intense gaze, we interpret it as destiny. The eyes trick the mind into believing we've found the one, when in fact we've just experienced a perfect storm of chemistry and fantasy. There's also an evolutionary angle worth considering. Among primates, direct eye contact often signals dominance or threat. Humans are unique in that we've transformed it into a gesture of connection. The whites of our eyes, the sclera, are much larger and more visible than in other species, making our gaze easier to read. This adaptation likely evolved to promote trust and social bonding. So every time we share an intimate look, we're engaging in a behavior millions of years in the making, a small miracle of evolution designed to hold tribes, families, and lovers together. Even the way we use makeup or lighting to accentuate our eyes plays into this ancient psychology. Eyeliner, mascara, the soft glow of candlelight all amplify pupil contrast and draw attention to the gaze. Historically, candlelit dinners weren't just romantic for atmosphere, the dim lighting literally made pupils dilate, enhancing mutual attraction. In essence, romance has always been a game of biology masquerading as mood, but beneath the science and symbolism lies something profoundly human. When you meet someone's eyes and feel that spark, what you're really experiencing is recognition, the sense that your existence is being acknowledged. Eye contact tells us you are seen, and in a world that often overlooks, dismisses, or objectifies, that feeling is intoxicating. Even in therapy sessions, sustained eye contact can accelerate emotional breakthroughs. When clients finally meet the therapist's gaze during vulnerable moments, it often marks the point where walls begin to crumble. The eyes, once again, act as the bridge between intellect and emotion. What's equally intriguing is how easily we can sense authenticity through gaze. We know when someone's eyes are lying, even if we can't explain why. Micro movements, tiny muscle contractions around the eyes betray genuine emotion. Real desire, real joy, real empathy, they all leave signatures that can't be faked. This sensitivity is why actors who truly connect with their scene partners create such powerful performances. Their brains are sensing through real mutual attention. There's a moment in almost every romantic encounter, whether it's a first date or a deep relationship, where words fade and the eyes take over. That's the space where intimacy is born. It's fragile, electric, and utterly human. You can't manufacture it and you can't fully explain it, but you can feel it down to your bones. So maybe the eyes of desire aren't just about attraction at all. Maybe they're about recognition, about finding someone whose gaze doesn't just excite you, but understands you, someone who looks not through you, but into you and says, without words, oh, I see you. And I like what I see. If you strip away the science, the hormones, the evolutionary theories, that's what we're all really searching for, to be seen and accepted in our most unguarded moments. Eye contact is the first language of that acceptance. It's where connection begins, where desire takes root, where love sometimes quietly announces itself. So the next time your eyes meet someone's across a room, don't dismiss it as coincidence. Pay attention to the way your body responds, the warmth in your chest, the tightening in your stomach, the way the world narrows to just that gaze. That's not magic, but it's close. It's your biology remembering what it was designed to do, to connect, to desire, to see and be seen. Because at the end of it all, the eyes of desire aren't just about looking, they're about recognizing. They remind us that intimacy begins long before touch, long before words. It begins in that split second when two gazes meet and say everything language never could. And in that shared silence, something timeless happens. Two minds, two hearts, two histories align, if only for a breath. And in that moment, desire isn't something you feel. It's something that sees you back.